Flyers Nitty Gritty podcast, getting gritty with it with your host, Yuri Wallach. Jamie Baskow is not with us, unfortunately. However, I have my good friend and returning star of the show, Anth Merrigan. If you guys don't know Anthony, he essentially runs a hockey community. That's the way I always see it. And I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit, but I grew up with Anthony. He knows more about hockey than the majority of people I know, and he plays hockey every day, essentially, of his life. So that on top of it, welcome, Anthony. Thanks for.
Hey, man. Hey, dude, it's good to be back. Happy to be on the Flyers Nitty Gritty. It's kind of sucks that Jamie's not here. I love that dude's energy, and especially like with the Flyers tomorrow, he's probably. I don't know. He may be too fired up. He may be too fired up if he was on today, because that dude makes you want to run through a wall on the regular. But it's good to be back, like you said. Just, I guess you would say in the hockey community in Philadelphia. It's kind of like my role, and I do run a rink. But here to talk some Flyers hockey today. So pumped about this. Pumped that we got NHL action on. Overtimes already. Let's get it going.
Hell yeah. And to point out that point about Jamie, his shirt would probably be off, and maybe like one of those towel waves. That is, he would at least be talking about it. He mentions it quite often. Yeah. So, we do have a lot to talk about, actually. There's been a lot of good, weird news. Like, as a Flyers fan, and Anthony, obviously, we've been Flyers fans for a long time. We're not used to being the 4 team that dominates everybody to the 1 and then goes like, we told you we were going to do it, and we did it as well. Like, that's not at least our recent history. Flyers go on and beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-1 on Saturday in a game where, again, the bottom end of the lineup, and we'll just call them bottom end because it is the bottom lines for the middle 6, I guess, in this case. But Aube-Kubel is a monster performance, 2 goals, 6 shots on net. Couturier had 2 assists, Farabee with a goal and assist, obviously the top line. So many narratives, and Ghost as well thrown in there. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But it was a statement of a win. And I think after the way they came in and what they did prior to the break, it was a hell of a way to come in. I believe is the true start of the playoffs. And what do you think about the game?
Yeah, so the last game was interesting because, like you said, it was, again, that bottom 6 forwards getting it done with a sprinkle in there, Coots, Ghost, guys that are, used to putting up points, I guess you would say. But it was an interesting game because I feel like they dominated first 2 periods. Third period, you had to expect a little bit of a pushback from Tampa Bay in that sense. And I feel like just that third period, they were in their zone a lot. But the chances they gave up were minimalistic, outside shots. Not a whole lot going on there, and watching this Tampa Bay team even right now as we speak against Columbus, 50 shots in a game that's in OT. So they're a team that has a lot of offense, and the Flyers kept them to a minimal, which is it's crazy to say. It's almost like comparing it to the Eagles defense back in the day. Everyone used to pride themselves on Eagles defense, and the Flyers defense was always subpar. Now they're an amazing 7 defensemen, call it, that are able to keep shots, low opportunity shots, and keep the puck out of our net. Look at the goals against that we had, right? 3 goals against in 3 games. I think that says it there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. And I've talked about this before. My Phil Myers video, I talk about it all the time because in that video, I think this is the definition of the moment you realize how spoiled we are right now with what's happening to the Flyers. When is the last time you had a 7D Ghost came into the lineup and put up 2 assists and was all over the place. Like that, obviously he's not a real number 7 in any way, but if you think about it just overall, when is the time the Flyers have had anything like this? Like, I can't think of another team in the NHL, and you can make a case they have a better defense, but I don't know if you could say they have a deeper defense. Nope. Quite frankly, we have our number 1 with Provorov. We have a very good complementary Niskanen with him. But, we have a lot of fresh faces. But, Sanheim is going to blossom in a top pairing if he's not already there. Myers, the same thing. Ghost, who's done in his past. Braun, who's been a top 4. Haig, who's got a chance to be at least a number 6, if not more.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't include any of the young guys beyond that. Those names alone, I'd match that group up pound for pound against any group in the league. And I mean that honestly, and I mean that just depth-wise, rolling 3 defensive units. It's complementing the offense, and we're seeing it in the numbers. We're seeing the bottom 6 getting the puck in the offensive zone regularly.
Yep. And that's what it all comes down to. I think, to your point, these 6 defensemen, and even Hag, he was the one guy, the odd man out, who couldn't move the puck as well. They can all move the puck now. And Ghost, you could tell, even in that last game, I know we'll get into him a little bit later, but he had confidence with the puck, was making precision passes that before he was fumbling, throwing in people's shin pads, wasn't getting out of the zone. So, to your point, I mean, this is a deep decor. You think of like a couple years ago when Nashville made their run, how deep that decor was. I think this is very similar to that kind of decor, but I think we have overall more talent, obviously, with the run we're about to make here. And if you think about the Flyers 2010 run, we ran 4 defensemen the whole playoff, basically 4 to 5 defensemen, and they made a nice run. Different game, I get it, but the fact that you can run 60 guys the whole time, 7 in case someone gets hurt, is unreal for the Flyers.
Yeah. Well, you can compensate with elite talent. Like, we had Pronger, so you just play Pronger 30 minutes a night. We had Timonen, you play Timonen 30 minutes a night. Those names alone are exceptional, right? Mm-hmm. That's how you pull that off without 6 defensemen. Otherwise, you're not getting there. Like, you're not doing it. You're not getting to the finals unless you have 2 number 1 centers. If you're weak at wing, even slightly weak at wing. Like, the luxury the Flyers have this year is a depth level which I really have not seen. And I know we're like gushing a little bit here, and we'll go into other stuff, but it showed against these teams. And again, it's not a reflection overall, but just the fact that, like, if the bottom of the lineup were to get shut down, well, now you have to actually stop Couturier, Giroux, and theoretically Voracek or Farabee, right? But, like, there's always going to be a wave of somebody who can score a goal coming at your team. Exactly. There is no, we can shut down this one line or 2 lines or even 3. At this point, our fourth line will score goals on you. And our third pairing. I mean, you go back in the day, if Ghost, and this is what I'm assuming is going to be the day 1 pairing, this is what I would do. Ghost and Braun is your bottom pairing group. I mean, name a better bottom pairing group in the NHL. You're not going to find it. Even Sittenheim. It's a luxury you've never seen. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's crazy because usually your bottom pairing is a shutdown pairing. Our bottom pairing has a dynamic 2-way defenseman. We're an offensive defenseman, really, but and then a shutdown D guy, which is nice. But Braun, he makes a lot of smart plays in, like, holding the blue line. He makes tons of smart plays, and that goes back to, and I think I talked about on the last podcast I was on, having that right shot, left shot D guy on every line makes a whole world of a difference. Once we've had that, our defense the Flyers defense completely changed. Like, being able to make passes direct on someone's stick changed our whole dynamic of how we enter the zone, how we break out of our zone, things like that. So it's pretty crazy. And like you said, if our fourth line and third line are doing that well, you got to focus on the first 2. Well, that's the top 6 that nobody wants to go against at all right now. So it's crazy, the depth of the fight.
I totally agree, and I feel like we're leaving out Haig, but I think and I just want to add it to your point because, when you're talking about that bottom pair, keeping that left and right, that's why we're excluding Haig. I'm essentially picking Ghost over Haig, not because I don't see Haig being part of the mix-up. I mean, if he was a righty, I would play Haig over Braun in a lot of situations, 100%. Just because of the youth. I actually really like Haig. I really like Morin as well, and Friedman, and Zamula. It's like, I think all of these guys have talent, and I know we're not even talking about Cam York, and I think all of these guys have talent. Like, I'm ready. I'm, like, ready to mix them all in. Just the reality is that I see the fact that Ghost, and I guess we can just talk about Ghost now, and we can talk about for next week. That the reality is he's a defenseman that's hit a 65, 60, or 70-point pace at 3 different times in his career. You would be hard-pressed to find a defenseman who can do it once. Yeah. So that's what I say is, like, if you have a guy who is capable of doing that, getting him playing at that level is so immensely valuable.
Yeah.
Like,
And think about we had him scratched, at points. Again, injury plays into that, but he was scratched at points in his career. There's not one other team that can say that they have a 65-point defenseman that was riding the pine. Like, it's crazy. And quite honestly, if you were to go back kind of that Tampa game, if you were going to have any kind of showcase of why you should be back in the lineup, he freaking did it. Like, what else did you want him to do, right? Like, he had everything, but, and even the assist, the one I think was a deflection, right? So that, in my opinion, is almost like a goal, right? Without that shot, there's no goal. So he had a great little tryout for that, for his shot to get in the lineup. So I truly believe he will be a huge boost to that team if they bring him in the lineup. So
yeah, and this is no knock on Provorov, but our power play with Ghost running it was top 5 in the league, I believe, at one point. Provorov has never gotten to that point. Not that I think he can't. I actually think Provorov is exceptional, so yeah. I think he will get there. But it's a testament to, one, Ghost is older, he's more developed. But Ghost's offensive game really is at a very high level. We have to be able to leverage it. At the very least, if he's not going to stay here, so he just doesn't leave for nothing.
Exactly.
At the very least for that. I mean, I personally would like to keep him, but I recognize the expansion draft, so got to do something,
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, that's coming up, and you kind of have to think about that. But hey, like I said, he's had a good audition and his little bit of this return here, and hopefully it can help the Flyers along the lines in the playoffs, right? By having that deep D-core, and he can help out in that respect. And if anything, it helps him out with his stock in the future. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. So let's just say right now, it's game 1. It's Wednesday. It's 8 o'clock. Is Ghost on AV's lineup? Is he on yours? And then is he on AV's? 2 different people.
Yeah, obviously he's the coach, knows a lot more than I do. But in my opinion, I think, like I said, just mirroring what I just said earlier, he had his audition and he crushed it, right? Like, I think, in my opinion, I would go with the same kind of pairings that you had with the Povey, Niskanen, Sanheim, Myers, and I would go Braun and Ghost. And it's not because anything Hag did wrong, but I think Ghost is playing motivated, man. And I think that's super dangerous, that if he's playing motivated in a smart manner, which, again, in AV system, it's a little easier to do, to play smart and manage the puck. It's not like dump, chase. This is Ghost's game, right? Like, passes tape to tape, join in the rush, all those kind of things. And he's so highly motivated right now. Like, you hear him talking about it. He's like, I just want to get in. I just want to win. I want to prove that. All this stuff in the past was a lot of injury stuff. He's a mobile defenseman his knees were hurt, right? Yes. That takes away his game, right? So the fact that he's healthy, I think you have to put him in. And again, it's a long series, 7 games against a team that theoretically you should beat on paper. So this is the opportunity to get his feet wet, in my opinion.
So you're saying yes to both. So you'd put him in, yeah. And AV is going to put him in 100%, too. Yeah. You know what, man? I actually do agree with you. I know that people will probably tell me no, and I think Haig plays that. I don't want to say conservative, but he's got that physical edge over Ghost, and it's nice. It's nice against a team like Boston, actually. So it kind of makes sense. These physical teams, maybe you want an extra PK guy, but if Ghost is playing, like you said, and that audition worked the way that it did, AV seems to reward that type of behavior as well. He doesn't just forget that you came in and lit it up. He rewards you for it. So I would expect you can always roll back to Haig again if there's a problem, right?
Absolutely.
We're coming in right now. And again, the team that we're playing against, I mean, they're actually not the biggest, strongest team either. So this would actually be a situation where Ghost would excel. I would say definitely our power play hasn't scored, and I would mix him into the top unit at this point. Let's get him confident and rolling again. And again, I love Ghost. I want to keep him, but at the very least, we have to move him. Let's move him at the draft. Let's get a top pick or something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
agreed.
If he rebounds, we could do that.
Yeah, 100%.
So what do you think? All right, so let's go beyond that. So we both like Ghost. That's awesome. Let's talk about the actual games. All right. Let's talk about Montreal. Now, the Flyers come in as the number 1. I'm going to repeat that, the number 1 seed.
Not a big deal.
No big deal, right? And division champs and conference champs in the regular season already. Just want to clarify so everybody remembers that. So they come in against the 12th or, the 24th ranked team. We'll give them the 12th ranked team in the East. Now the 8th ranked team in the East. I guess. What do you think? I'm just gonna start off with that. I want to hear your early thoughts. I don't even want to taint them with mine.
Yeah, so oddly enough, I was with a bunch of Pittsburgh fans during the first 2 games of this series, right? So it was interesting to be with those fans and kind of watch this series develop because it was a win and a loss for Montreal. They win game 1. I think it was in overtime, right? And then in game 2, they lost. It was 3-1. You're like, okay, is Pittsburgh just going to take over the series? It was a fluke win. But, man, they're a resilient bunch, man. Like the Montreal Canadiens – nobody had them on the radar to beat Pittsburgh, right? I don't think anybody. Actually, on the Nerd podcast you did with us, Mike, my co-host, he actually did pick them as the hot take. So it's kind of odd that happened, but we have a nice little chat going on about that. But Montreal, man, they grind it out, man. That's what I noticed in that series. They do grind it out. If you look at all the scores, you had 3-2, 3-1, 4-3, and 2-rip. So they're all tight games. Just like the Flyers, they were all in tight games. I think these games maybe meant a little more. So I think that combined with the fact they're going to have a little edge to them because they were just playing playoff hockey. So their legs are a little warmer. I wouldn't doubt if they came out flying in that first period and Flyers are on their heels a little bit. But I think in the long run, the Flyers just have more depth, as we've been talking about this whole time. They have more depth, and then, it's going to come down to, a battle of will, honestly, and goaltending battle. So
it's, it's funny, man, is like, I feel like that is what you said, and not that it's the common consensus, but I've been hearing so much of that. And I feel like I'm in fantasy land, and it could be wrong. Like, I could get smacked down to earth, but, like, I look at the way that the Canadiens played Penguins, okay? They struggled a little bit with the Penguins, We did not. We have not struggled with the Penguins. We actually have not struggled with any team of late. So I'm, like, thinking about, like, okay, I get it, and they're coming in hot, but we, at the same time, are like, all of these teams are coming in good, and we're making them all look the same. So, like, my thought process right now is, like, as long as Carey Price doesn't hit, like, God level, which I guess could happen at some point, I don't know. I guess I'm not concerned. Like, I'm not saying sweep. I don't even like even saying that stuff out loud or anything like that because I don't really think it matters. But I just believe the Flyers will be in control of the series. Like, even if they lose the first game, like, it's not going to feel like the Flyers were losing if that was the case. Like, goddamn, well, we'll keep doing it. We'll just keep coming. And again, because of the makeup of our team, every wave will come at the Canadiens. Yeah. It's not like if they stop Crosby and Malkin, you got it. That's not going to work for you.
Agreed.
You're going to get attacked all through the lineup. So that's the one thing where I think it makes you feel good.
Even to your point, Montreal played more of a playoff-like atmosphere, but we also played the top 3 teams in the division, right? So whether the atmosphere wasn't as intense, right? We're playing creme de la creme, right? So and you could tell that. I think what the biggest asset of this Flyers team is their depth and how they can come at you in those waves. And Montreal, if you look at their bottom 6, I mean, they have Dale Weiss on the team, even though he kind of chirped the Flyers a little bit in a quote I saw where he's like, he's going to have a little extra pep in his step. I'm like, no, it's just not. Like, I'm not worried about Dale Weiss. If that's what we're talking about, then, like, you're right. It's going to come down to the goaltending. Is Carey Price? I mean, him and Carter have very similar numbers in that first round, right? So, he has a 9.47 save percentage. That's pretty damn good against guys like Malkin, Crosby, Gensel, those types of shooters. And they were getting – I think Pittsburgh was at, like, 33-plus shots a game. So he's seeing a lot of rubber. So – I just personally think that the Flyers have owned Carey Price in the past. So I think, like you have this cloud around. I have it a little bit too, where I think the Flyers get in his head. If they get in his head early, I think it's going to be a rough series for them. My only worry is they've played us tight twice this year. I think we're 2-1 against them, and I think both wins were in overtime. So that was like my worry. But this team was different when they played them.
Exactly. That was the beginning of the and. Because I see this team as the team that was that stretch run team, right? The team that beat the Blue Jackets home and home, and it never seemed like they were going to lose. In fact, all of those games, and I feel like that's the same team I'm watching. Is not a team that's infallible, not a team that can't be beat. I definitely think we could lose. And there are other teams out there that hit this caliber, in my opinion. Boston did it last year. I think that they ran through teams at one point. And the St. Louis, obviously, their stretch run, stuff like that. You see it happening, and it's like you're just instilling your will on the opposition. It's great that they're good. They recognize every team is good, and I feel like that's kind of what's important. I didn't hear any Flyer going like, oh, yeah, we're coming in red hot. We expect to, like – I hear, like, they're focusing on how good the Canadiens are. I'm not. It's not my job, but I would be if I was in their shoes. You know, I would be very humble with all this. But, you know, I think where they have Weber, we have Provorov. Where they have Price, we have Hart with a backup of Elliott, you know, which is the best position goaltender we've had in at least the past decade.
He looked great, man. He looked great in that game.
Yeah. Well, we have Sean Couturier. They have nothing. And I'm going to be – I like Philip Deneau. I like Nick Suzuki. I like all these players. Nick Suzuki probably will be a star player in the league. I totally agree. Kotaka Niemi also. I have high hopes for this team. Don't get me wrong. They're just not there yet. And I'm like, you don't have the 1-2 punch in every position that we do. And that's where I take us over most teams in the league.
Absolutely. You know? The depth is what it comes down to, right? That depth of just not being able to hang 4 lines for 4 wins, to get past that, or a 7-game series. I just think we're going to wear them down. And again, there might be tight games in there. I'm not saying they're not, but yeah, I agree with you 100%. I just think we're going to be able to come at them in waves. And I think that's kind of the moral of this series, right? So they're not going to be able to handle the waves.
Yes. And let's talk about a couple lineup things here. So we talked about Ghost, right? We both hoping and assuming that Ghost will be in the lineup, and we'll find out probably game time at that point. But let's hope Ghost is in there. And not the end of the world if he's not, but let's hope Ghost is in there. Now, we have 2 names. Jake Voracek sat out last game. We had Joel Farabee, who had a very successful game in that spot. But I will say also had a very successful game playing with Aube Kubel and Grant on that third line, and I think there's something there. I would definitely try to put that back together, and then maybe try JVR on the fourth line with Thompson and Pitlick, and then get Voracek back on the top line. It's kind of what I'm seeing for combinations. What do you think about Voracek? Obviously, we don't know what the injury is, but probably it was a tweak, a minor injury. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a couple days ago with his injury. I know he practiced, right? So that's always a good sign that he's skating. So if it happens to be a lower body injury, if he's skating, you wouldn't risk it, right? If it was a major injury. So hopefully it is a minor injury. And if he's in the lineup, maybe it was just one of those things. Hey, it's the last game. You have a minor injury. We want to see JVR because he was benched the game before. We want to see Farabee. So, you just kind of insert those other pieces in there. The game, not that it was a throwaway game. You want to win that game, obviously, but it's a game where, again, like we said, it's a seeding game, right? It's not a playoff game. So I hope it was just a maintenance thing and that he could be in the lineup, because if he's in the lineup and that first line gets cooking again, he's going to be a huge engine. And like Jake is one of those guys. The only thing I worry about is he usually takes a while to get up to speed, right? He's known for that. It takes a couple months to really be Jake Voracek. So hopefully he could just turn that on real quick in this little season that we have here and be the Jake that we love, that creates, that is a threat every time he's on the rush, that has that chemistry with Drew and Coots, and hopefully, the injury isn't major, right, at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, and I actually totally agree with you. I actually think not that they were being lazy in any way, and I will throw Couturier in this as well. I didn't see 100% from any of the 3 of them, but I kind of expected that. It doesn't mean that I thought they were giving 50%. It was 80%. Like I saw times where I was like, not that they would have produced more necessarily, but you just see the energy. Yeah. Those weren't the games that really mattered to them, and they're aware of that. So I agree. I think they treated it a little bit more like warm-ups, and I think just like preseason, you saw players in the bottom end of the lineup perform, because a lot of times these are audition games, Absolutely. Right? And they get up for these games. So I think we saw some of that in some of these games too. And, to your point earlier with Montreal playing a little bit more meaningful hockey, I do think that that's the case. Having said that, I don't think the Penguins really showed up for that series to the degree that they're capable of. Not the Penguins that I know. not to go down like that, not to go down in 5.
Yeah.
I mean, that's uncharacteristic. I imagine there's gonna be some changes there.
Yeah.
Maybe coach change or roster change or something.
Yeah, it's really odd. Maybe they just wanted the first overall pick. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, the thing is with the Penguins, like they have depth in the minors. Their minor league teams are always good, and that's why it was like kind of weird to see them just kind of like turn over like that. Like their lineups, like usually they have guys that are like trying to grind. Like we're mentioning the Ave Kubels and even like a Nate Thompson, right? Like technically he's a vet on the team, but he's still proven himself. He's only played a handful of games with the Flyers. He's proving like, hey, here's what I could do with the PK. Here's how I could be effective on the fourth line. And don't you know he tucks one in the playing games here. So it's nice. Yeah. And he should have had a couple, honestly. I mean, geez, he looked awesome for a guy like you said who's probably on a bit of an audition, right, to keep his stay in the lineup. Not that I think he would come out because he is a good vet, but like you're saying, just to your point, it's nice that we have this depth and we're going to keep coming back to it.
I mean, listen, if you were to ask people like, I don't know, 2 years ago, is Scott Laughton potentially a 50-point player in the NHL? Most of them would be like, no, absolutely not. He's too old. We already know what Laughton is, right? Oh my God, I hate hearing that so much. I can't even explain to you. When somebody says that they know what somebody is at 24 years old, I mean, you see players change at 30, and Niskanen is a beautiful example of that. He didn't evolve into the defenseman he is till today, till he was like 27, 28 years old. And then he got like really good. His numbers are best now. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of players. We're going to see that. So the other player I wanted to bring up in all of this is Oskar Lindblom. We had this a little lower in our stat, but I think it's a good in our sheet. But I think it's a good time to bring it up because Oskar Lindblom is in Toronto. He's under quarantine. He came over the weekend. He's got to do 4 days of consistent tests to make sure he passed. I believe that would make it tomorrow. Yep. If you're listening, this would be the day of. So hopefully Lindblom gets out of quarantine. I know he's got a bike in there. I heard Fletcher talking about that. They just have him exercising in his room, essentially. But, I mean, outside of that being absolutely insanely awesome and extremely rare for something like this to happen, what kind of boost would Oskar Lindblom bring to this lineup even halfway through the first round, theoretically the second round? I mean, they're talking about him playing. I don't hear like, oh, maybe. Crazy. I mean, like, about playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, so there's two factors of it, right? You have the emotional boost in which we're kind of like hovering around right now, right? And I compare it to a time where I remember one of our guys in the tournament got hurt early in the tournament, puck to the face, stitches, the whole thing, and we're like, oh, this dude's done, right? Like he's done for the tourney. And we were kind of like bummed because he's a good player in the beginning, and then he came back, and the boost we had, we were just flying high, and like you see him out there, like he had the cage on, still eating pucks, still blocking shots, and it's just like crazy the boost that gave. Now, times that by 1,000 because you're talking about someone who had a life-threatening disease. He's going to come back. Not only is he only there, even if he was just there as a black ace, right, or he was just there for morale boost, that's crazy to a team because you've heard it all year. The teams have been playing for Oskar, and I really think there's something like weird thing about it, but they're just doing this for him. There's Ed Snyder's looking down on us. He sees this is happening. A guy who played in his organization, who was there when he was there, who had cancer as well, now is giving this team this extra boost. It's kind of weird and creepy in a way. Like it's awesome. And then if he plays, I mean, they need to write a book on this guy, like hands down. Like there's no way you go from having a disease and cancer like this to being not only in the NHL bubble, but potentially playing NHL playoff games in the same year. That is crazy to me.
Yeah, wow, that was really well put there, Anthony. And I think it's really funny that you mentioned like there is always a narrative to this type of stuff. It's almost like so storybook. You're like it's almost like it's gotta happen now, right? Like it has to. Because all these things align. So, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, to be honest with you, man, I think there is a lot to that positive energy. I really do believe that that humans can do that to one another. Athletes can do that to one another. The city can do it for its team as well. I've written articles about it and got bashed for it, of course. But I wrote
Positive
articles
vibes.
about it. I mean, even think about when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, the other teams started winning, and everybody was chanting essentially like "Fly Eagles Fly" in every stadium. It was irrelevant. We just felt like champs, and the teams played like champs. And I think Oskar Lindblom like really is a gift to the Flyers. Like in a lot of ways, the late round pick. He's not just good; he's very good. Yeah. He's a very good player.
He's like leading the team.
So, if he comes back, I'll say it over and over again. This Flyers team is this good without Nolan Patrick and Oskar Lindblom, which is like 2 years ago, our lineup would have been in shambles. And today, we're like rocking and rolling. And at that point, we're going to be like, where do we put him?
Yeah, exactly.
Where would you put him, especially if you're winning?
I mean,
I don't know, man.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Before he, had to stop playing, you had that line of him, Coots, and TK, right? So, remove Coots from that and you put Hayes there. Imagine if that was your second line. Like, that's crazy.
Instead of Lawton.
Yeah, instead of Lawton. Do you even mess
center
with that, right? So, okay, maybe he goes to the third line. Now you have a guy who was, on pace for 30-plus goals on your third line. Like, crazy with Derek Grant, who's just been a treat to have. Like, don't think we'll be able to keep him, but I think he's been great for what he's done. And, like, I love that dude. I love how he plays. He plays smart.
They're going to try. They're going to try to keep him. I think they will try to keep him.
Great. But, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The emotional boost, that energy right there, it is true. It's all true, man. Good vibes, positive vibes, good energy. He walks into that room glows up no matter if it's the Penguins room he walks into, the Rangers room, he glows up that entire that entire league, right? So he's been just nothing but a treat.
Well, to that narrative point that we were talking about earlier, I mean, if you think about his personality, from what I understand, I've only been around him very little amounts. I'm not pretending like I know him personally, but everything I hear about him is that how positive a person he is, how he already is like a ray of sunshine.
Yep.
So like it just adds, it's almost like a superpower of his.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? And that's what the intangibles that everybody talks about. I guarantee that's an intangible.
The biggest one.
Yes. And that's why I call it love, because I think it's very hard to be the guy who like loves your teammates, who's like, whether that one has a problem, this one's not great at this, that one was late to that, blah, 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 to like literally care about everybody and make sure like even the stuff you hear about like that they do. We're talking about Dale Weiss, we're making fun of him, right? But we know that he's helped Nolan Patrick and how that's probably why Ron Hextall signed him, is because of his personality, not his play on the ice. And fortunately, he just overpaid him a little bit.
I mean, Lindblom is the humble hero, in my opinion. So he's a guy that he's just, again, that energy is going to just carry right over. And I hope, could you imagine that storybook ending if the Flyers did make it to the Cup and they eventually win? I don't want to jinx them, but if that all happened in this season, kind of like the 2010 season, man, you just felt like they had this energy after that first round. You're like, when they beat Boston, you knew like that they were going to roll through Montreal, but that whole season, you're like, nobody's stopping these guys.
But Montreal did not.
No.
Like, that's a great point, Anthony, because that's the exact feeling I have now.
Yeah.
Is that like I get you. You have Carey Price, you got Shea Weber, you beat the Penguins in a playoff round. That's great. It's not going to matter. It's not going to help you. And I remember having that thought over Montreal, who was the higher ranked team that year, and we beat them in 5. Like it was, and that was that famous Mike Richards goal, right, where he went through the players,
just
the
collision,
say that. and as soon as Richards scored that goal, you knew narrative we were talking about over. The captain pulled the goal. That was the series. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew that was the nail in the coffin. It was the first period, I believe. It was the first period and the first goal.
You got to drop that clip somewhere in this. That thing that I could watch it 1,000 times a day. The best shift. Yeah. Man,
I totally agree with you, man. But there isn't, and I do feel like that's kind of what's about to happen to the Canadiens, that they're going to come in like, oh, we're riding high, we're a good team, and then they're just going to get dominated by a better one. Like that's kind of, and And I'm not knocking the Hurricanes because I actually think what they did is very impressive. Though I don't think the Rangers are as good as everybody else thinks. I think they're a young team, and that's why they lost all 3 games, because that's what young teams do. I do think the Hurricanes are a good team. I don't think that Boston is going to roll over, and I think for sure that series is going to 7 probably, and I think Boston will not be an easy team to beat whatsoever if they do want to beat them, and I would not be surprised if Boston takes that series, even if they didn't play well in the earlier rounds, just because of how good the Boston Bruins really are, and we all know that, and they didn't give us their best effort, so I mean maybe they did, but it didn't look like it. So if they put up a better effort against the Hurricanes, dangerous team.
For sure.
So let's talk about the last part of this matchup, and then we'll go around to the NHL. Anthony, I'm going to let you open this one up just because you have more experience in this position than I do. But we have kind of a really awesome matchup here, which is essentially, let's call him Bernie Perron 2.0. Carter Hart. Yeah. Well, the Carter, I'll give it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, a lot of people are calling him, the Carey Price Jr., right? So you got experience in Carey Price, but Carey Price really hasn't had besides that 1 year, right? And I think Halak played most of that series. He hasn't had a ton of playoff experience or success.
We chased him out of the net.
Short side high, man. I remember that series. We just went glove high on him every time and just picked him apart. Obviously, he was a young goalie. He's developed a lot since then. He, in my opinion, is top 3 goalie.
I think he was 19. I think he was 19 or 20.
He was
younger than Hart.
Yeah. He was. But you're looking at a combination or a goaltending matchup here of Hart versus Price, and it's crazy because you're looking at mirror images of each other. They both play the same conservative way, very efficient in the net, very smart. They anticipate the play well. What it's going to come down to is, we saw Carter Hart rebound a lot when he had a bad game, come back the next game and just shut the door. So if he can do that and maintain that, you got Moose in the background who, if he has to step in, he's going to play well. He looked awesome at the end of the year, looked awesome in the Caps game, right? So I think Hart is playing really carefree at this point. He's like, yeah, what do I have to lose? We're coming in here. I got great defense around me. He's going to come in there. He's going to play with confidence. Their numbers are very similar. Hearts are a little better in the play-in round versus, Carey Price's in the qualifying round. But numbers very similar there. I just liked how Hart played, honestly. I just thought he looked confident. He didn't give up any weak goals that we saw kind of in the beginning of the year as a young goaltender, as expected. And, it's like I said, if you can get on Price early, he's been known to kind of not implode because he's a world-class goaltender, but if you get in him early, I think you have a good shot at beating him for the series, right? It's a marathon, not a race. So I think if you get to him early, get traffic in front of him, get noise in front of him, I think it's going to be a tough set of series or tough set of games for Carey Price.
I would actually totally agree with, especially that last statement. I think he should expect to have a big centerman entering his wheelhouse on a very regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
And probably getting very angry because we have very big players on this team. Ones that I don't think Montreal can really cope with physically. I think people underestimate Hayes' ability to stand in front of the net. Just his presence. Yeah. That's the one thing I did not anticipate with Hayes. That's what I was hoping when I said, other people have said this too, but I was like, he's hopefully our new Keith Primo. He has a presence, not a physical presence when he's on the ice. And it is very difficult. I mean, even Dustin Byfuglien has that, and we had to deal with it with Pronger. We thought Pronger, he'd be able to handle it. Pronger had difficulty with that. And obviously he's not Dustin Byfuglien, but he's a center. We're going to be crashing his net quite a bit. Though I agree with you, man. Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, though. It's going to be interesting because there's no crowd involved, right? Yeah. So the element of being a rookie in front of thousands of screaming fans
That's a great point.
Is not
That's a great
there.
point. Yeah, it is.
That's an edge that Price would have over Hart that is really not part of this equation whatsoever. And potentially why we saw Hart be I don't knock on wood, but infallible essentially during the warm-up games. I mean, think about, did he do anything wrong? No. It was it's like the best the goaltender has looked in a Flyers uniform in like 10 years.
Ever.
At least.
Yeah, in my opinion, ever. But yeah.
Straight up talent-wise, I mean, I wasn't around for the Pelly Lindbergh days, so I don't want to say. But I would say it's him or Bob. And Bob we didn't have in his prime. And I don't know.
It's pretty crazy because that what you bring up with the no crowd, it goes both ways too, because usually the Flyers fans in general are pretty hard on Price. They'll get in his ear, get in his wheelhouse. But it is, I think, a bigger benefit if you're going to do a comparison of us getting in his, head a little bit versus Carter Hart not having any fans to get in his head. I think that holds more weight, right? Because you're right. I think in like that Edmonton game where he went up there, he played in that, in that area for his whole, career. He's from that area, right? If I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Yep. Families there, friends there. That's a tough game for that kid to be a part of, and he gets shelled and chased out of the net, right? That's not going to be a factor here. There's no fans. He's not playing for anyone. It's just people on TV, So I think that's a awesome point. Yeah, exactly. It's like a pickup for him. Yeah, so it's awesome it's a really good point.
That's actually a really good point about that Edmonton game. And again, this is why I talk about this all the time. They are kids. They're not actually kids. Like, I know he's 22, but like that is overwhelming. It's overwhelming for an adult. Mm-hmm. And that's where, you say the edge for Price. Like, could the fans get to Price? Maybe, but probably not in the certain position he's in his career already. Like, he probably would ignore us completely. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But at this point, it's like, whatever. We become background noise. Oh, quick update here. Calgary just blew their lead against Dallas 2-2.
Good.
That's a pretty even matchup between Dallas. Well, we're gonna get to it in a minute here. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Let's go into our next round. Let's go full on NHL. We talked enough about the Flyers. We have our first round upsets. Let's talk about the round robin first, and then we'll talk about the current round that just began today as we're filming. Where do we even start with that one? I guess let's start in the East. The round. Who are your losers of the round robin? Let's say that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Pens. Definitely a big L for them, which love. Honestly, the Rangers, being the fact that the Rangers beat Carolina, I think, in every game in regular season, and the fact that they just kind of got swept is like what happened there? But they did get the first overall pick, so I guess they have kind of a little bit of a silver lining there. The Panthers-Islanders one was interesting. It was a boring series, honestly. That's just how the Islanders play, but I didn't really think that was an upset. And then obviously the Leafs and Blue Jackets, man. And Blue Jackets just keep coming, man. Every year you think they're going to be out of it, and they're not. So I honestly, besides the Panthers series, which I kind of expected them to lose, I think the rest of the other series were all upsets.
And I mean, I think they were too. I think most people I saw said that they expected it the other way around. I did have Carolina over the Rangers, but I think people got way ahead of themselves on the Rangers going back to last year. Not that I don't see the exact same potential everybody else is talking about. I'm not crazy. I see what is happening there. And now with that first overall pick, like, forget it.
2-year rebuild.
What I mean? Like that. Yeah, exactly. Like, what a jump. I get it. But they're still a young team, and I don't expect them to really be where the Flyers are maybe for another couple of years, to be honest with you. And the Flyers are still progressing. It's not like we're lacking young talent. Lafreniere will come in, but I thought Kakko was supposed to solve all their problems, and he didn't. Because this stuff, it's not normal to have a Connor McDavid. Like, you don't even Nathan McKinnon was a 60-point player coming into the league. He wasn't coming in putting up 100 points in the league. That is very rare. And Nathan McKinnon is incredible. He's a franchise caliber center, Same with Leon Draisaitl. It's like these guys are developed. It takes time.
Absolutely.
But, so outside of that, so overall in the East, I totally agree with you. How about the West?
Go ahead. So let's just touch on the Oilers because you just mentioned Draisaitl and McDavid. I mean,
yeah,
man, what a tough look for them. Every game was an absolute shootout. 6-4, 6-3, 4-3, 3-2. The last one's a little tighter, but just shootouts in every game. And that comes down to they're still missing one of the key pieces that we've just talked about for the past 10 minutes with Carter Hart and Carey Price even. They don't have a goaltender, right? Mike Smith choked in the first round, which again last year for Calgary, I think it was, he played lights out in that first round, like literally stole him a series. Didn't work out for them. Koskinen is again on that trajectory up, but not there yet. So I think really it just came down to Blackhawks being more experienced. I did have the Blackhawks beating them just because I didn't believe in the Oilers after their first line, really.
I complete. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me add actually real quick to that because before we jump next to the next team, I love what you just said, by the way, and I totally agree. And it goes back to why I'm not scared of other teams, because this is why the Oilers lost. You can game plan around them, shut down their one or two threats, and then the rest of the team is not going to give it to you. And I do think Mike Smith is a decent goalie. I think he's as good as Brian Elliott is, essentially, especially at this stage. Maybe he's a little worse. He's a little older. But I think it's a reflection of where their team defense is, where their actual D is, the fact that they lack. They took a huge jump with Dave Tippett, and I expected that to a degree. But he's masking their defensive woes. They rely so heavily on Draisaitl, McDavid driving offense that they're set up for the future, don't get me wrong,
sure.
But they need pieces, and that's why the Blackhawks beat them, because the Blackhawks are deeper. They're not as talented, but they're deeper throughout the lineup. Sure. They can come at waves.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I mean, even I think McDavid had 8 points in the 4 games, right? Let's just call it that. That's basically 2 points a game. So call it 2 goals, right? Just to make things even. Yeah, it's insane. But after that, it's like you had Draisaitl. I don't know what his points were, but after that, it's like what happened. So I kind of expected that. Blackhawks, again, they're a team. They don't have a ton of depth. They have a little more depth and they have more experience. And I think that just carried them through this round because they took it like a playoff series, and they're like, we're playing with the house money here. We have nothing to lose as a 12th seed. We weren't even supposed to be in the dance. They got in, and they upset the Oilers, which was great in my opinion. I love seeing it a little bit. The other series, we're all pretty. I guess the Arizona series, I kind of expected the Predators to not necessarily win this series, but I thought they would have done a little better, quite honestly. But hey, shout out to the Yotes for doing what they had to do, taking a risk on Hall, getting them on the team, making them a playoff team. The Canucks, I expected them to beat the Wild just because the Wild, they were playing better at the end. I think they lost all that momentum once the break happened, because they were playing awesome at the end. They've been having goaltending struggles as well. You had Alex Stalock, who was a career backup, who was basically carrying them, and he played well. So give him credit, kudos to him. But and then the last one, I mean, I had the Jets personally. It's an upset in the fact that Scheifele and Laine weren't playing. I think if they were playing, the Jets probably win that series, honestly.
Yeah, those losses are huge, and especially the loss at the beginning of the year for that team. They lost a lot of talent. I mean, you're not. Yeah, and this was a very deep team back in the day, and they still are. I mean, obviously competed with the Flames, but a healthy Flames team, I mean, they have a pretty deep offense in general. I mean, their D is pretty solid. Again, another really good team. Definitely not a bad team in any sense. But, they can come in at you in waves, and it shows that in the playoffs that really matters, that your depth can contribute. And I think that's even – I mean, I don't know if you touched on Vegas at all, but Vegas alone is a representation of that, right? How did they make it to the finals when they first came into the league? They didn't do it because they had the best defenseman in the league and the best center in the league and the best goalie, even though Fleury played out of his mind. They had a lot of everything, so they just kept on coming. They never stopped, regardless.
For sure.
So let's go to this round. This is where it gets interesting, right? Because now we're actually down to the games. I would say this is the real playoffs for me personally. Okay, this is how I see it, and I think the opportunities here are very interesting, and I think a lot of these matchups really are up in the air in a lot of ways. And I would say there's only a handful of situations where I really see like an overwhelming majority winner. but I think every series, including, and I would even say Art, because we're not infallible, but every team outside of maybe a handful could go either way. So, and let's start off with the West this time, and then we'll finish on the East. Let's start off. I'll start from the top, and we'll go one by one. So let's start off with number 1 and number 8. Vegas, Chicago. Who do you see taking it? Do you see an upset?
No upset, unfortunately. I think the Blackhawks, though they had their upset in the first round, I don't know if they're going to get worked, but I just think Vegas is too deep. And they got Pacioretty coming back. I heard some people saying that might throw off their balance a little bit. I totally disagree with that. I think that he's a goal scorer that you just added to the lineup. Like, he's got 30 goals.
Former captain.
Yeah, like former captain. Like, no way that's going to throw off any of that chemistry there. But I think Vegas takes that. I don't know what I predicted on the games, but I think probably a pretty short series, maybe 5-6 games, something like that. So
I think that's pretty fair, and I do agree with you. I think the Hawks, if they had a little more depth, could take it to 7. But I think just because of the overall, the aging of their best defensemen. I think that'll probably come into play. Like, if Duncan Keith was in his prime and Brent Seabrook were in their prime, we'd be talking a very different game here. So I think that'll overall probably come into play. So I agree with you. I think probably 5-6 game series and Vegas takes it. This one I think is a really interesting one, though. I do think I give definitely the edge without doubt to the Avs. But Avs, Arizona, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the Avs just edge them out. I think Arizona is close there. I think it's going to be a tight series just because Arizona, again, they play in a tight system. Kemper has been an absolute beast this playoffs, looking honestly like a top 5 goalie in my opinion. He's huge in net.
Year.
Been playing,
All
he's
year,
been
right?
unreal this year. So I think he's gonna, he's gonna keep them in games. I don't think they'll have enough to get it done. But again, if the Yotes pick up that fire that they had in the beginning of the year, then maybe they can sneak out a win. But I have the Avs definitely in this one. I have it as a 7-game series though. I think the Yotes are going to steal a couple. I think Kemper's going to be unreal, and I think I think the Avs, they have a great heavy top 6 forwards. They fall off a little bit in the bottom 6, but I think they have enough to get it done at least against the Yotes.
See, and this is an interesting one because I started off with even a week ago, I was saying the Avs are my pick from the West, but I do look at parts of their team and I'm like, they're pretty young.
Yeah. Very.
They are very reliant on Cale Makar. And I mean, obviously they have Graves who's back there, who's not that young, who's very good. Right, they have the name. They have Johnson, who's their vet, right, who's a good one. They have talent and all that, and I agree with you. I do see the Avs taking this series, but I don't look at the Avs as infallible as I did before. A lot of it relies on Nathan MacKinnon. I'm going to say that top line of Land. I don't even know if they're all together. They're still keeping that top line. I haven't checked. But a lot of it would rely. I think they are, right? A lot of it would rely on that top line, and that really is – it's not an issue, but it can be an issue. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to stop Nathan MacKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog. That is a ridiculous line. You're going to get a goal from them a game. It's kind of how the Avs are so good, right, is that they have consistent offense. But I do think the way Kemper's playing, the way Tocchet has that team playing defense, the fact that they have their own goal scorers and Caden Keller is also a killer playmaker, an offensive contributor, and they have a bunch of other depth. I think there's an opportunity here to steal a series even from the Avs. I think the Avs could all go all the way as well, to say that. But Arizona is not. Yeah, Arizona does on paper impress me. And I think the on-ice results are there too. So they're due.
It's going to be tight.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's why I think it's going to be a tight series. Yeah, for sure. And then I think the next one's Dallas and Calgary here.
I'm
going to switch it up and throw it your way first. Let's see what your thoughts are on the Dallas-Calgary train. It's on right now, so.
Yeah. Well, let's just say right now, Flames are up 3-2, and I believe they have a power play as well here. So maybe they had a 5-minute major. We might have missed something important. But so This is an interesting one because I would really say these teams are pretty lockstep. I think both of them have their own strengths, but they both match up pretty well. I see this as a 7-game series. It's actually a really tough one to guess because I can literally see either team taking this one. And I think it probably will come down to goaltending. And maybe Calgary's veteran defenseman, Giordano's back there. But Dallas has high-end younger guys, and they have Klingberg, obviously. So it's like, I don't know, man. It gets complicated. I think really it could be either or. If you had to force me, I would say Calgary in 7.
Oh, wow. All right, so this would be the first one we disagree on because I had Dallas, but solely for the fact that, they were 1 goal away from a cup last year, or a cup, appearance last year. So, they lose to the Blues who, were the eventual Stanley Cup winners, but they were 1 goal away from it. And I just think, I don't know, I don't know why. I'm a big Stars fan. I don't know what it is. I just I kind of not root for them like I root for the Flyers, but I do like
Madonna.
them, right? Yeah, man, I've always been a Stars fan. I love their threads, like everything. I think you're right though. The goaltending, it's just what's going to happen with Talbot and Riddick, right? Is one of them, is Riddick going to play because Talbot has a clunker? I think Ben Bishop and Khudobin are just an awesome tandem too, if it comes down to that.
I would actually agree. I would agree with that statement. I would give Calgary the edge in the defense. Defensively, offensively is kind of a little 100%. Bit of a different situation.
Yeah.
Defensively, I think Calgary plays a better game, but the goaltending of Stars. So I honestly, you push comes to shove, I would take it. Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, it's really, to me, it's a toss up.
Yeah,
for sure.
They
have enough to go back and forth. I expect 7. That's, I guess, mine.
100. That's what I have.
All right.
Too.
Yeah. I lost my list. Oh, there it is. So the last one, obviously, St. Louis and Vancouver. I think it's gonna be a very interesting series. I expect St. Louis to take it in 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think St. Louis probably won't come with that same energy. I don't know if they're gonna win another cup. I don't think they will. I don't think they'll make it to the cup either. But I do see them beating Vancouver, maybe in 6. Maybe in 7. I think they're just the better team, but it's going to be really interesting. It gets interesting when Vancouver is led by a lot of youth versus a team that's a lot more established. But you never know. It might come down to goaltending again. I think this one probably will come down to goaltending, but I do see St. Louis taking the edge and being that team.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the strongest asset of the Canucks is their goaltender, right? Markstrom's an absolute stud. I've always loved him. So I agree. I can't really say much more other than I think St. Louis has just got the depth. They have the experience. They're just gonna wind up being it, be able to last the whole series where Canucks won't. But I do like the Canucks team for the future. I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah.
I like a lot of things they're doing. I like how their GM went out there and, probably overspent on Tyler Toffoli, but he's telling his team like, hey, you guys earned that respect. You deserve to be here. And so far, it's got them. The Wild's not, a stud, filled roster, but got them into the dance, right? And I definitely like where the Canucks are going. I just think too early for them, and definitely the Blues are, they have some pieces that came back too. Like think about it, they've been playing without Tarasenko all year, so he's fresh, coming back into his swing of things here. So I think the Blues, probably 5 games, I would say 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. And yeah, Vancouver's got a lot of promise, and I think they're definitely going that direction. And I remember even when they traded for JT Miller, everybody was like down on them for that. I was like, that was a great trade.
Yeah,
look, he's excelled. I don't know what's wrong. I don't understand how people turn on players like in a dime, dude. I just don't get it.
First line grinders.
Never really.
That's what this league's becoming. All first line grinders, the guys who can grind it out on the boards, but have the skill to do it. And every player coming up now, we'll save it for another pod talking about development of hockey, but every player coming up now can grind and has skill. It's crazy. Just playing in it today, I just notice it. So
you're not fucking wrong, dude. I shouldn't curse. Anyway, all right. So let's get to the East here. I'll start the opposite direction this time. So let's start with Boston and Carolina.
So I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but Carolina plays with some swag, man. They got that Rod the Bod, Brenda Moore swag, and I saw him playing like spike ball with the boys and stuff. It's like he's like we were talking about Lindblom being an extension of this team. He's another one.
Leads by example.
It's crazy.
Totally.
That dude is ripped up. I wish I could look like him at whatever he's at, 40 plus years old. But Boston's weird, man. That top line didn't look too good, but again, Tuukka Rask said in his interview, he's like, that doesn't matter. Like, this is the season. Like, we don't care about anything that just happened. So I could totally see them turning it on. And I was at that last Flyers Boston game before everything was shut down, and man, they had moments where they were just like, nah, you're not going to even get in our zone, and they were able to do it. It's crazy, but they're a deep team. Man, I picked Carolina. I'm kind of going back on it in my head a little bit, but I did pick Carolina just because I think they're going to do the same thing they did last year. They're going to surprise some people. It all comes down to, is Mrazek going to play as well as he just did? And Reimer had that unreal game in the qualifying matches. So, man, I'm going to stick with my pick on Carolina, even though I'm thinking about it. I'm like, damn, Boston is pretty deep, man. It's a tough one to go.
And I think Carolina, I think they could be getting Dougie Hamilton back very soon and Brett Pesce back. So those are big additions to them. But if Rask plays for Boston, who I believe he has not played, so that's actually a humongous return for them as well. I am exactly in the same boat. Well, not exactly, but I'm in a very similar boat. My pick was Boston. I would say it still is, but I wouldn't be shocked if Carolina took it. Having said that, if Boston came in rocking and rolling, I would take Boston. Yeah. Because of their history, their lineup, and the fact that they don't have any holes in their lineup. They have the starting, just like us. They have the starting goaltender and the backup. They got all the defensive roles filled in. They got the vet with Zdeno Chara. You know, they've won cups. They have the centermen down the middle. They have their grinders. They have their scorers. Everybody plays good D. Carolina's kind of got that. Yeah, well, Carolina's kind of got that as well, too. It's why they've improved. It's the Rod the Bod element that you're talking about. I mean, that's how he played. So they play – I mean, they're in shape. They hustle. They play D. And they have goal scorers. They can move the puck. So I honestly – I'll still take Boston in this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina takes it. I do see it going 7.
Absolutely.
And going 7. Maybe we'll be wrong and it'll be a sweep. And then Carolina will be like, oh, we're the big dogs now. And then they'll play the Flyers and lose. All right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't even want to see that. All right, so let's go to the next series. I think this is my upset for sure. This is what I think is an upset. Islanders Caps. I'll let you go first, Dan, and I'll respond.
I mean, I think we're going to say the same thing here. I think the Islanders take it, and I've been getting a lot of heat for that. And mind you, I have a couple of friends who are big Caps fans, excuse me. But I had the Islanders just because I watched that Florida series, mostly because it was on 12 o'clock every day because nobody else wanted to watch it. But I would sit here at work and I would take my lunch and watch that series. And, man, that team is just suffocating. And I think, again, in a long season, maybe they don't look as good, right, because it's 82 games that they're playing. Playing that style for 82 games is it takes a wear and tear on your body mentally. You got players like Barzal who aren't allowed to be as creative as they would like. So that's a whole thing in an 82-game series. In a 7-game series, it's a lot different. I think you could play that let me eat a puck off my face kind of hockey, and I just don't know if the Capitals are going to be ready for it. Plus, Barry Trotz knows the Capitals. He knows their flaws. He knows what to watch out for. They even not trick plays. It doesn't really happen, but he knows tendencies of players. And I just think Trotz is a superior coach. And I think Varlamov's going to play with the chip on his shoulder a little bit. Like he played for the Caps at one point. Yeah, former team. I just think there's too much going for the Isles. You know, Pajot looked like pretty good in that first round too, with a little like rat that he is and putting in some pucks. And what's his name? Bolivier, I think is how you pronounce it, right? Yeah. He had a really good first round. Barzal is dangerous. I mean, they're actually a pretty damn scary team. And every time the Flyers play them, it's a tight game. So I think they're going to edge it out, man. It's my hot take.
They're deep. They lack some elite punch, especially on the back end, but they're deep. I mean, like they have 3 pairings. They have 4 offensive units. Like that's how Lamoriello built that team, and it shows. I totally agree with you. I think the Caps are not anywhere as disciplined as they were when they won a Stanley Cup. I think Trotz did set that. I think you see the effects of a coach. We see it here in Philly, right now. You can see as it came to the Caps, right? They were always a good team. They always had the talent to compete and be at the top. So when it came to the Caps, they hit this high peak. They won a cup. They had contract problems. He leaves. Then he goes to one of the most mediocre teams in the league. And then overnight with another magical GM, probably very similar mindset. And then that team now rises to be a competitive team every year. It's not by accident. And I think they're going to take advantage of a Caps team that isn't that organized. And if John Carlson is not 100% for this series,
that's what I was going to say.
They will not win this series, in my opinion. There's no way. They will not. Can't play D. Go ahead.
They're kind of in the same boat as that Boston, right? They didn't look great in round robin, but if the Capitals heat up, you're like, that's a storm that you don't want to weather, right? So it's really just a toss up. I think we're, in both these last two series, it really comes down to, I see more playoff hockey played by Carolina and the Islanders than I do over the Capitals and Boston in the games we've seen so far, right? So I think it's going to be a tough test. I picked Islanders in 7, so I'm just going to stick with that because I do think they are going to come out.
I think Islanders in 7 as well. It could even be 6 in the end, and it might be like a long look in the mirror for the Caps. I would not be surprised if I'm proven wrong. I mean, again, they have all the talent in the world to beat the Islanders. It's not an issue of talent here. It's an issue of execution. And I'll say the Islanders, in my opinion, are the scariest team in the East for me because it doesn't matter if we have more talent than them. And that's the thing that scares me. That's why Montreal doesn't scare me. But the Islanders, who don't have an elite goaltender, even though they have a good goaltender, they can make their average lineup seem like an elite one. Having said that, that's what I think is also happening with the Flyers. So that's why I'm not like shaking in my boots. I'm asking for the challenge, to be honest with you at this point. But normally in the past, that's what I would be scared of. Yeah. So let's go to we'll do the Flyers last, but we'll go through that one quickly. Yeah. Let's do this one. The game is on right now. It's at the end of a double overtime into 3 overtimes. We'll see what the result is. Yeah. But we have Tampa Bay. We have the Blue Jackets. Who do you think? Who do you take?
Rematch of last year, and I picked it just like last year ended. I picked the Blue Jackets in 7, and it's crazy because we talked about this in the beginning of the pod here. All 4 of the teams that that had a play in are all teams that really were underdogs in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not in as wide of a gap between some of them, but they play the same system as like the Islanders, a 5-man defense. That's what I call it, right? When anytime I'm coaching against teams, I'll say, hey, listen, these guys play a 5-man defense. So that means you got to get the puck in, you got to hit their D guys. And that's what the Lightning has to do. And they've been playing hard-nosed hockey in this game. It's just coming down to one. Korpisalo's playing unreal in this first game, right? And he's played unreal pretty much all playoffs. Got pulled, I think, or didn't start the one game. But aside from that, I think the Blue Jackets just have this chip on their shoulder. They have confidence against the Lightning, and I think they are going to come out on top, even though they don't have the star-studded offense. And with no Stammer right now, I don't know if he's due to come back, but not having Stammer in there is a huge L because he's a threat on, every time he's on the ice, he's a threat that you have, like Ovechkin, you have to keep your eye on him at all times. And that, when you're doing that,
huge loss.
Exactly. And when you're keeping your eye on one guy and you're super focused on that one guy, everything else opens up around them, right? And that's kind of where I think Tampa Bay, again, they have Kucherov, they have a whole list of players you can name that can score, even their bottom 6 forwards, Gord and guys like that. But I just think I think Columbus has this swag about them against the Lightning specifically. So I'm taking them in 7 again.
Yeah, I would say John Cooper better coach his ass off because if he doesn't make it out of this first round, he's probably not making it to be head coach of this team. And he is a good coach, so I'm not knocking him. But if he gets outcoached by Torts again, it's not going to look good. And Torts is a very interesting coach because he is a guy who he doesn't even want a star-studded team. Like, I don't really think he even cared that Panarin left. Like, I don't think to him it matters whatsoever. That's what I really like about Torts. And the downside of Torts is the same thing that's the plus side of him, is that he'll bench talented players for non-talented players and do stuff like that. As a fan, will drive you nuts. but he does it for a reason, and he does it for reasons like this. And again, it's very similar to the Barry Trotz thing. It's like he's old school, but it works. It definitely works. Hard work definitely pays off. I still want to give the edge to Tampa in this one. I think they learned their lesson. Hedman is playing. Hopefully they can get Stamkos back, though. It's a great point, and not having Stamkos is a humongous loss. Even for the amount of talent they have, he's so good that it's like it sucks. So not having that, I mean, I definitely think there's an opportunity here for the Blue Jackets to take it again. But I do see the Lightning squeaking by in 7. I don't see them dominating this team. And if they continue to play the way they played against the Flyers, they will not be getting past the second round. So that's something to think about with this team. They didn't go out and get Blake Coleman for no reason. They gave up a first-round pick to get him. I think they lack a little bit of that grit. I don't know if that's a huge problem. We'll see. I mean, they have an insane amount of talent. On paper, it should easily be the Lightning. But Columbus has a way of being annoying. Columbus has talent. They have Pierre-Luc Dubois. They have a defense that I would say is arguably even deeper than Tampa Bay in some kind of ways, even though Tampa Bay's defense is ridiculous.
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
But they just have a young, youthful, talented defense. And Columbus, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. On paper, I give the nod to Tampa Bay, but
just
we'll see.
If the third overtime here, so
I was going to say, I think if the Lightning win the first game, the Lightning take the series, maybe even quicker. But if they lose that first game, it's iffy.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested to see what's going to happen now because this is bleeding into this 8:00 game. So are they going to postpone it, or are they going to play it tomorrow? Like, what's going to happen? Like, literally, I mean, it's 7:30 right now, so it's going to be interesting what happens here.
That's a really good point. They might have to postpone a game. I didn't even think about that, Ant.
11 o'clock.
Should be interesting.
11 o'clock West Coast start in Toronto, eh? Jeez.
Make them fly over there. Get them over there. Just kidding, right? So, all right, let's talk about our last one, then we'll end it here. So, obviously, Flyers, Montreal Canadiens. Let's just say, Ant, you open it up. I'll close it up. Yep. What do you think? What do you think about the series?
Flyers, I'm saying Flyers 5. I'm going to say Montreal may sneak out a win, and solely I'm basing that win off of the fact that they played us tight all year, right? And I'm going off that. It is different hockey. This is a different team, but I think every team that is in this round deserves to be in this round, and it's rare that you see a lot of sweeps in the NHL in the first round. So it happens time to time here or there, but definitely a rare scenario. So I think the Flyers in 5, and I think I think that I personally, not just because I'm a Flyers fan, I think they do have the best shot to go to the Cup in the East, just based off of how they're playing and their confidence, what they're saying, everything based around it. We talk about it, the energy of this team. I just think they have a shot to they have a chance to go all the way, and they should if they play how they're supposed to. So Carter Hart and Price is going to be a good battle to watch. Again, it's going to be so sweet for Hart, who looks up to Price, playing against him in the series. I think that's just going to give him a little more swag, and like I said, Flyers in 5.
Narrative to take the mantle from Carey Price and make Hockey Canada really feel it that he's not in Canada. He's in Philadelphia, where goalies come to die. And I think the narrative is definitely set for that, and I agree with you. I think if for any reason Montreal could end in 6, but I think most likely the Flyers will probably win this out in 5. I respect the team too much to say a sweep. I don't like to say sweep against any team, but I just say that the Flyers can win every single game against Montreal. So let's put it that way. It would be a lot more difficult for Montreal to do the exact opposite to the Flyers. I think the Flyers have the same elements of what Columbus and the Islanders have today, only with more talent on top of that. And I think that's what makes the Flyers the scariest team.
And I think even if the Flyers lose like game 1, right? Say like worst case scenario, Flyers lose game 1. I don't see that becoming a snowball effect where they just keep losing. I see them chopping it right there and going, okay, fresh start. Let's move on to game 2 and do what we're supposed to do. I just don't see this team, having that weak mindset. I think they're too strong mentally to just roll over on a team and not care and throw a clunker. I think this is the time where they've been waiting for, and they've known since, probably February February, March, where they really started playing good hockey, in my opinion, which is going to take time for a new coach to come in, a lot of new personnel. It's going to take time for that to gel. So I just think they're picked up right where they left off, and I'm happy to say that that Flyers are going to be Stanley Cup champions hopefully this year. Unfortunately, we may not be able to have a parade though.
We'll have a virtual parade. We'll celebrate on camera.
I don't know about that.
I'll tell you what. If they win, I'm running in for COVID. I don't care. I'm gonna be running around like an animal. I might get arrested. It might happen.
Just
Who
wear
cares?
a mask, dude. Just wear a mask.
Yeah, just wear a mask, and everybody will leave you alone. Yeah, that's all that matters. Just wear a mask and do whatever the hell you want. All right. On that note, totally agreeing. Good opinion there. Anthony, thanks, man. Appreciate you joining. This was fun as hell. Yeah. Tell people where they can follow you, where they can find you. Yeah. Shout out to your league, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm involved in a lot of things when it comes to hockey in our area. So the best way to reach me is we have nercsports.com. That's NERC sports.com. There's a little contact box on there. You could just shoot me a message right from there. We have an Instagram, Facebook, all the same stuff, all under Nerc Sports if you just search it. If you're looking to get involved with any kind of hockey in the area, or we have our own podcast as well, which Yariv and Jamie were a part of, and we would love to get them back when we come back. We're due to be reopened back up in September, right after Labor Day. So hopefully we get those boys back on. We can recap some of the playoff stuff with them, because it was a great episode. One of our most listened to episodes. I think, we're a small podcast and we're not a big deal, but we had like 150 listens, which is good for us. So that's kudos to you guys for getting on there. Some I guess people know who you are. You guys are getting kind of popular, but yeah, man, you can hit me up anytime. We're always very responsive, trying to get people involved at youth and adult level. So even if you don't play roller, you're looking to get involved, we have foot hockey, everything. So kind of the man you need to know if you want to get involved in hockey in this area.
You got a website for people to go to or anything?
It's nercsports.com, NERC sports.com. That's where you could find out all the information on our leagues and everything like that.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's support local hockey. Like something a lot of people don't realize is like that is how you breed all of these awesome hockey players, is like the culture of it. That's where all of these guys come from, and we know we have some local heroes in the area. Like, again, this is that stomping ground that, and Ant's told me stories. Obviously, I have other friends that have told me stories. A lot of pros will even play in like tournaments, over the summer that you guys are involved in. And like you're talking about Shayne Gostisbehere, right? I think Patrick Kane was at one of them as well, right? Yep. Little things like that. They have. Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, and even in the roller hockey world, which I'm more, involved in, we had, guys like Brendan Bradley, who's played for Kalamazoo. I had a guy, unfortunately, who plays for the Wheeling Nailers of the Pittsburgh organization. He was my D partner last weekend at a tournament. So there are high-level hockey players playing both right ice and roller in this area, and for some reason, it's super weird, but Northeast Philadelphia and South Jersey are huge hockey hubs, and you're starting to see a lot of guys that are going to be coming out there, and especially like how you said, supporting local hockey. It's always good to just get out there, see something a little different, especially, we're going to have this gap whenever the NHL is going to start back up. There's a lot of good hockey that's going to be going on in that interim. So definitely check us out, and, keep following the Flyers Nitty Gritty for show.
Oh yeah. Thank you again, Ant. Thank you so much, man. This was so much fun. And for all of you who are listening to this, go Flyers. Hopefully you're listening to this right before Game 1. If not, hopefully we're celebrating a victory afterwards. And it's good to be the one. That's really nice to say. So just remember, all of our fans, well, not our fans, all of our listeners and readers, thank you so much for watching and supporting us. We don't think of you as fans. We just think of you as part of the community. That's how we think of ourselves. We're nothing special. Like Jamie and I, we just sit here and we just talk shit 24/7. So now we actually have an audience to do so. So thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it so much. And please keep supporting us, and we will keep delivering with more content. And remember to always stay gritty.